In JobPro, we've added in a lot of new resource planning related functionality. Now, a resource in JobPro can be a contact or a person, it can be an asset, or it can be in a location like a room or a building. So in the Jobs and Tasks module, we can have the ability to schedule and book resources. So let's take a look at that. If we go into Jobs, create a new job, and we specify who the customer is. Now, we've added a new resource tab in here. So in addition to what contacts are related to this job, we can also click into resources and we can add contacts, assets, and locations. So for example, if we say that Joe is going to be working on this job, purpose, maintenance, from a specific date to a specific date, and if there's any differences between the dates here and the date of the job, we can update the job details automatically. And we could say start time 11 a.m., finish time 12 p.m. Okay, so now we can also add in areas like assets and locations as resources on a job. So if we click on add an asset, it could be a tool or it could be absolutely anything that you need to use on a job. Now it also can be a customer owned item as well. So something that you've sold to a customer. You might be doing a repair on it or doing a maintenance. You can also add customer related assets to a job for them as well. Okay, so let's just pick anything here. And we can also add a location, like a room, an office, anything that you need to use or book in on a job or on a task, or potentially rent out or loan out to a customer. So we'll say we need this room from 9 a.m. to 11. Now all this functionality that you see here is pretty much identical at the tasks level. So if we go into tasks, and on the general tab we've got our contacts relating to this task. We can set up alerts for contacts relating to a task, but we've also got a new resources tab where you can book in people, assets and locations that are relevant specifically to this task itself. It could be, for example, a meeting, and you're going to book a meeting room. You're going to specify who's going to be at that meeting and the times. And one of the big advantages of this is that being able to double book people or assets becomes pretty much impossible, or you'll get warnings anyway saying that you're about to double book a person or an asset or a location. So in the calendar, we've also added in new resource functionality. There's a new resources tab in addition to the previous tabs that were already in there. So if we look here, we're on the resources week view, and we can toggle between contacts, assets and locations. And this is where we can select people, or if we're on assets, we can select assets and locations of what we want to view the data over on the right hand side of the calendar. So for example, if we look at the day view, we can clear all the names here. So we can now specify which people do we want to view side by side to look at their capacity for any given day. Okay. Now, if we look at the week view, we can also set the week view to show, instead of just 7 days, we could make it 14 days, for example. Especially if you've got a larger monitor, you can extend the size of the window and view everything, even up to a month or beyond if you like. So if we take a look at, say, the Assets tab, in here then we can specify for any assets where they're booked in on resources, whether they're jobs and tasks, and what's got capacity to be used on other jobs. So lots of new functionality in here that you can use. Lots of different options as well. And also the same functionality in relation to locations for booking rooms, booking offices, booking really anything that you like. So let's go back into jobs. Another new function in relation to resources is the ability to create invoices using chargeable costs. Now that was a feature already in relation to other areas like expenses, but in relation to resources, you can log the actual charge out rate for time, for people, and for assets and locations as well. So let's take a look at that. So for example, if we were charging out time for this particular contact, we can say that it's billable, which you can turn on billable automatically from setup to say that every time you add a person or an asset or a location to a job or to a task, that it's automatically set to billable. So you can say billable usage, it's based on usage, which is time, or a flat rate, which is just a fixed fee for that actual resource booking. And the rate could be, for example, per hour. And then we've got a charge out rate of 120 euros per hour is linked to that employee in their employee screen. The quantity is 49 hours, and then that shows you the total amount and whether it's billed or not. So if we go back into the job, if we click on invoices, click on create invoice from costs. So you can see here, now there's various areas that you can invoice from different types of costs, like on a purchase order, expenses, time as well. But in relation to resources, for areas like contacts and locations and assets, you can charge out an invoice for that resource use here as well. Now a great use of this new resource functionality is for if you do servicing or maintenance on whether it's internal or customer related assets, well then you can manage all that now from within JobPro. So if we have a look at a customer screen, and if we click on find any customer, and if we look at products, so for this particular customer we can see all the different assets that are tracked by serial numbers that you've sold to that customer, or potentially the customer is introduced into the system because you mightn't have sold some items to them before, but they might still want you to service them or do maintenance on them. So from within here we can create a job. So let's say we want to do a maintenance job or a service job on this particular asset for the customer. We can click on this plus button here, create a job. So it's linked the new job to that customer, and on the resources tab it's automatically added their specific asset that you're going to then service or do maintenance on. And you can schedule it in here. But also you can then add in any relevant contacts that you're going to use, like engineers or internal people that are going to be used in relation to this job. Another useful use of the resource planning functionality is for employees' holidays or their leave, their annual leave. So if we take a look at that, and we pull up an employee, and if we then look at their leave tab, basically this is just like the resource tab in jobs and tasks. It ties into the same table for resources. So if we have a person that's set for their annual leave on a specific set of dates, now we can see there's a clash because Joe Blogs has been booked in on a specific job between those dates. So there's a lot of new visual functionality that makes it easier so that you don't double book people in where they shouldn't be. And if you hover over the clash, it'll show you that there's actually 4 jobs that this person is booked in during that time. We can enter in details as well on this actual annual leave booking. But all of the annual leave or holidays that you enter in for employees, they also display in the resource section of the calendar as well. So you could, for example, go into the calendar, click on contacts, click on a month view, and here we could say let's view leave or holidays, and you can see then for everyone, or the relevant contacts that you selected on the left hand side, who's taking holidays or leave and when. And that's also very useful for booking in then people on jobs and tasks and who's available when and where. So if we go back into jobs, so one of the other useful areas of resources is that we can actually book in now an unlimited amount of resources, whether they're contacts, assets or locations, on a job or on a task, while previously this was more limited. Also, if for example here we're using an asset on a job, and we'll specify the date, and we put in the time, and we'll say then that that's in progress. Now what that does in the system for this specific item or serial number, it flags it that it's unavailable. So now when the actual item comes back in, and it could have been used on a job or it could have been rented out, for example, to a customer. So this functionality is ideal for rental related companies that either rent out or loan out items or assets to customers. But when we set this particular item to be complete, it then asks you to return the item, and we can say no. And if we're saying no, then we need to specify why. So if we click on no, we can say that it was, for example, it was broken, used, etc. So let's say it was just used up on a job. So what that does then, it adds an expense item to the cost tab of the job, as this item basically has been removed from stock completely. So that pretty much covers the new resource related functionality in the system, and there's a lot more information in other relevant video tutorials on resources and jobs and tasks.